Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates.
Ted Cassidy's doctor's report after he died showed some really sad things. Ted Cassidy was born Theodore Crawford Cassidy on July 31, 1932 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was super tall at 6 feet 9, and Ted's amazing height came from a sickness called, which happens when your body makes too much growing stuff. While this made him really big and perfect for playing gent characters in movies, Cassidy proved that actors who look different can do way more than Hollywood thinks. He was really smart, loved art, and had a deep booming voice that became one of his school's talents. Cassidy could do lots of things. He wasn't just an actor, but Heck could also play piano really well, do voices for cartoons, and write stories. He was way more talented than what people saw on TV. Cassidy's big break happened in 1964 when got picked to play Lurch, the sad but sweet butler on the Addams Family show. Even though Lurch wasn't supposed to talk at first, Cassidy made up his slurring response and it became super famous and helped make Lurch of Orion's favorite character. He was really funny and great at moving his booty in silly ways, which made a character that could have been boring become really warm and interesting. Cassidy's acting made Lurch way more than just a background guy. He became famous all over America. Besides his Addams Family, Cassidy kept working on TV shows and movies, usually in scary or magical stories where his height and voice worked really well. He had cool guest parts on shows like Star Trek where he was the voice of Gorn Captain, Dream of Jeannie, the Man from U.N.C.L.E. and the Incredible Hulk where he said the opposing words and made the Hulk scrolling sounds in the first episodes. Cassidy also used his voice for lots of cartoons and commercials, showing how good he was at changing his voice. He was really good at making different sounds with his voice, and his work is often talked about as helping start modern voice acting on TV. Even though he looked really big and scary, Cassidy was actually quiet, smart, and really nice when he wasn't acting. He loved reading books and learning about history, and he went to college even while he was acting. Cassidy finished school at Trinity University in Texas, where he was really good at his classes and played college basketball. He also got really good at performing arts while there. During the 1960s and 1970s, Ted Cassidy, who everyone knew for being super tall and having the amazing deep voice, became real famous on American TV by playing lots of fun and memorable side characters. In 1967, he was in a really cool episode of the Beverly Hillbillies called The Dahlia Feud, where he played Mr. Ted, a really big strong gardener that the snooty Miss Drysdale hired to plant her special flowers. With his huge body and serious way of talking, Cassidy turned what could have been a tinny role into a scene-stealing moment that mixed physical comedy with perfect timing, making the popular term even funnier. The next year, Cassidy showed how good he was at playing different kinds of characters. In 1968, he was in the crime show Mannix playing Philippe Montoya in the episode To Kill a Writer. His acting made the mystery deeper and more exciting with his powerful presence on screen. That same year, he played Gentle Sam, a pirate with a nice-sounding name but a tough personality in the Daniel Boone episode The Scrimshaw Ivory Chart. Cassidy's acting as the mysterious spirit showed again how good he was at making even the weirdest characters seem real and interesting. Cassidy also showed his funny timing and love for fantasy in the classic sitcom I Dream of Jeannie, where he played two different characters in separate episodes. In the crazy episode Jeannie Who's Got Jeannie, he was the master of Jeannie's troublemaking sister, acting with both authority and playful charm. He came back to the show in another episode called Please Don't Feed the Astronauts, this time as Jeannie's cousin, bringing more energy in So Presto, the magical world of genius and NASA astronauts. Ted Cassidy's work also went into science fiction. In 1976, he took on the really hard and memorable job of playing Bigfoot in the two-part episode of The $6 Million Man called The Return of Bigfoot. Andre the Giant, a professional wrestler, played Bigfoot first, but in Bigfoot became a character that came back a lot, sometimes fighting and sometimes helping in the Bionic universe. Cassidy's version was scary and mysterious, brought to life not just by his huge body, but also through his growling sounds and the way he moved. Cassidy played this famous role again in the 1977 follow-up episode Bigfoot v. making his place secure in one of the show's most popular and weird storylines. Besides his sci-fi and sitcom work, Cassidy made a big impression on fans of Western TV shows. In 1970, he was in Bonanza, one of the most loved and longest-running westerns in TV history. His role in the episode Decision in Los Robles once again showed how easily Heckle fit into different types of shows, bringing seriousness and mystery to a story about right and wrong set in the rough Old West. Besides his unforgettable presence in TV, Ted Cassidy also built a really interesting and varied career in movies during the late 1960s and 1970s, showing how versatile and unique he was on screen across lots of different types of movies. One of his most memorable movie appearances was in the famous Western Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in 1969, a movie that became a classic of American cinema. That same year, he brought his commanding presence to Mykonos Gold in 1969, a high-stakes Western adventure filled with dangerous land and buried treasure. Cassidy's movie work continued into the early 1970s with an appearance in The Limited in 1972, followed by the TV mystery series Banachek in 1972, where he helped the show's mix of wit and he also appeared in Charcoal Black in 1972, a less well-known but interesting entry in his movie list that let him stretch his acting talents in darker material. In 1973, he played a role in the tough prison drama The Slams, adding raw intensity to the action-packed story. As decade went on, Cassidy stayed active in movies. In Thunder County in 1974, he brought life to yet another distinctive character in a rural crime setting. He took part in the weird thriller Poor Pretty Eddie in 1975, a cult classic that mixed horror, drama, and exploitation in a provocative mix. Cassidy showed his comedic timing in Harry and Walter Go to New York in 1976, a period comedy filled with heists and silly antics, and it continued that momentum with Spoof, the last remake of Bojest in 1977, a funny take on classic adventure tales. One of his final movie appearances came in the musical comedy Going Coconuts in 1978, where he participated in quirky family-friendly antics of Donnie and Marie Osmond. But Cassidy's creative reach went beyond acting. In 1973, he teamed up with screenwriter Michael Werner to write the screenplay for The Harriet Experiment, a movie that looked at youthful idealism and sexual freedom in a progressive age setting. Cassidy even made a brief cameo in the movie, adding his personal stamp to a project that was already bold and ahead of its time. During this period, he also worked with executive producer Noel Marshall, who also worked on The Harriet Experiment, on the ambitious and notarized Lacadic film Roar, an adventure comedy centered around lions. And although Roar was not released until 1981, 2 years after Cassidy's death, his involvement in the film showed his lasting passion for storytelling and his willingness to take on challenging, unconventional projects. Cassidy's creative flair wasn't limited to film and television. In 1965, he went into the world of music, releasing a novelty single through Capitol Recorders that perfectly captured the whimsical, spooky charm he brought to his most famous roles. The aside, titled The Lurch, was a quirky, danceable tune written by Gary S. Paxton that playfully referenced his character from the Addams Family. The B-side, Wesley, was written by Cliffy Stone and Scott Turner and rounded out the single with more musical flavor. Cassidy not only sang The Lurch, but also credited the comical dance that went with it. He brought the routine to life on the TV variety show Shindig on September 11, 1965, exciting audiences with his towering frame and deadpan expression. Headed the performance again just weeks later on a special Halloween episode of Shindig, cementing the song and his delightfully spooky persona into pop culture history. Together, these diverse artists' endeavors demonstrate that Ted Cassidy was far more than a character actor. He was a multi-talented performer, writer, and creative force whose contributions to film, television, and music continue to intrigue and entertain fans decades after his passing. Ted Cassidy married Margaret Helen Jesse on June 14, 1956, a real important event that happened shortly after he graduated from university. At the time, Cassidy was a young man filled with big dreams, not only for his starting career in radio and entertainment, but also in his personal life, as he looked forward to building a future with his new wife. Their marriage was marked by helping each other and shared dreams, especially as Cassidy began to make his way in the world of broadcasting and eventually acting. Margaret, often described as intelligent and caring, provided a steady presence in Ted's life, especially in those early uncertain years as he changed from radio work in Dallas to television film. Just a year into their marriage, Ted and Margaret welcomed their first child, a son named Sean, born in 1957. Becoming a father had a huge impact on Cassidy, who, despite his imposing heightened, deep rumbling voice, was known in private life to be gentle and he took great pride in his role as a parent, often setting aside time from his increasing lighting career to be with his family. 3 years later, in 1960, the couple welcomed their second child, a daughter named Cameron. Ted was said to be overjoyed by the expansion of his family, and friends and colleagues noted that often spoke lovingly of his, though his work in Hollywood kept him busy. Especially during his years playing Lurch on the Addams Family, he remained committed to fatherhood and found ways to stay connected to his children. Both Sean and Cameron would go on to chart successful paths of their own, eventually becoming attorneys, a testament not only to their intelligence and determination, but also perhaps to the values instilled in them by their parents. Cassidy, despite the growing pressures of fame in the entertainment industry, placed a high value on educational discipline, and it's clear that these priorities made a lasting impression on his children. Today, Sean and Cameron are not only accomplished professionals in the legal field, but also carry forward their father's legacy with quiet pride and dignity, often choosing to remain out of the public spotlight. However, the pressures of fame, long work hours, and personal challenges inevitably took a toll on Ted Cassidy as his career evolved and his commitments in film and television deepened, sometimes requiring extensive time away from home. Thus, strain on his relationship with Margaret grew more pronounced. After nearly 2 decades of marriage, Ted and Margaret divorced, In 1975, the separation marked the end of a significant chapter in Cassidy's life, closing a period that had encompassed his rise to stardom, the growth of his family, and some of his most iconic performances. Despite the divorce, he remained a devoted father and continued to maintain relationships with his children. Ted Cassidy's doctor's report after died revealed a number of really sad and deeply upsetting details that added a heartbreaking layer to the story of his death that came too soon. Known to millions as the towering, deep-voiced actor behind famous roles such as Lurch in The Addams Family, Cassidy was admired not just for his unique physical appearance and voice, but also for his talent, intelligence, and quiet, personal struggles. When died on January 16, 1979 at the age of just 46, it came as a shock to his fans and colleagues. And the official doctor's report offered a clearer picture of the circumstances that led to his tragic passing. Cassidy had undergone open heart surgery to remove a non-cancerous tumor that had formed around his heart, a condition related to complications from a rare birth condition called this hormone disorder, which causes abnormal growth due to too much production of growth hormone, had significantly shaped his life, giving him his towering 6'9" frame, deep voice, and elongated facial features, but also leading to serious health complications over time. Although his physical traits had contributed to his success in Hollywood, they also represented a constant underlying struggle with the strain his condition placed on his body. His heart had been under stress for years, and the surgery was meant to offer a fresh chance at health. However, the doctor's report revealed that complications from the surgery became too severe for Cassidy's already weakened body to handle. During recovery, he suffered unexpected organ failure, and despite the medical team's best efforts, his condition got worse rapidly. The report indicated that Cassidy died from complications to the removal of the mass surrounding his heart. While the tumor itself was benign, the trauma from surgery and the physiological stress from his underlying condition contributed heavily to the cascade of health issues that ultimately led to his death. In addition to tough medical findings, the autopsy, how Cassidy's condition had quietly impacted his quality of life for many years, though rarely spoke publicly about his health struggles. Close friends and family later reflected that often experienced tiredness, joint pain, and heart stress that bravely endured to maintain a strong professional image. His touring figure, once seen as his most powerful asset in film and television, was in fact the result of a disease that shortened his life and limited his health behind scenes. The sad details in Cassidy's doctor's report offered not only answers, but also a sense of closure to those who admired him. It painted a fuller portrait of a man who achieved fame through unforgettable performances. Buto also carried invisible but eventually proved too much. In retrospect, the report stands as a sober reminder of the human fragility behind celebrity and the profound ways in which even the most towering figures can be brought low by the quiet toll of disease.